Hey, it's me. Clearly. Today I am painting on something that gets painted every time I paint, but never remains painted. What am I talking about? Paint palettes. I use these things every time I paint. You guys know what it does. And then after I'm done using them, I just wash them off. Sometimes. But it didn't occur to me until my recent 24-hour challenge video to make a paint palette into the artwork itself. Ooh, concept. This is the one that I did in that video. So it's like a decorative paint palette, and you guys
loved it.
You weirdos. And have been demanding that I do more. I think that's an excellent idea. I bought a couple different shapes of paint palettes, and not just these. I bought 40. What? 40. I bought 40. So I have plenty to work on. My ultimate goal is to cover my walls in them. So that's what I'm gonna try to do today, is paint enough paint palettes to make a little gallery, and I'll hang them on the wall at the very end of the video. Let's get to painting paint palettes. Okay, here are all my paint palettes.
Ew.
I have 18 of this kind, 12 of these, and 9 of those. Add that up and it makes, actually wait, that's only 39. Whatever. I'm gonna be using a buttload of acrylic paint and Posca paint pens. Okay, palette number 1, done. Moving on to palette number 2. So I don't know about you, but when I see a circular object to be decorated, my mind immediately goes to one thing.
I want to do donuts.
The urge to turn this circular paint palette into a donut was just too strong. I couldn't fight it. Here comes the chocolate frosting. Kind of looks like something else. So painting on the palettes with wells in them was pretty interesting because not only are they kind of tricky to maneuver over, but they create weird optical illusions and make your lines look all wiggly, so you kind of have to play around with your shapes to make them appear the way you want. At the time, I felt like this brown color was a bit too dark, so I lightened it. Ready? Boom. But not gonna lie, I kind of like the original brown better. And I'm bringing in the Posca pens to add in some details, including
the whole...
You have arrived at a very special place. And the sprinkles. This one came out okay. It's definitely not my favorite of all the palettes that I'm gonna paint in this video. Something about it just doesn't look like what I pictured. It's fine, but we're moving on now. I'm gonna grab one of these flat palettes, and since I had a bunch of brown paint, hysterical, I decided I wanted to use some of that paint up, so I turned this palette into a hamburger. We had dessert, so now we have to have dinner. These aren't all gonna be food themed, by the way. Breaking out some of my apple barrel paint. Oh, apple barrel is watery. Look at this. What is that? It's a puddle. Okay, back to my hamburger. I'm realizing just how crappy the apple barrel paint is. I mean, the wateriness. But I used to use this stuff exclusively, and it was great. I never had any complaints. But now that I've been living it up with this new paint, which is still beginner grade, but it's slightly a step up, I am feeling the difference here. I can't imagine what actual high quality paint is like. It's probably incredible. The paint probably just applies itself. I mean, let's be real, the cheap paint really does work fine, especially if you're used to using it. You're not gonna miss anything else. And now I'm gonna be using my Posca pens to bring in the details of this. Why is my skin like all speckly? Does this look like a hamburger? I thought it did, but now, I think I've been staring at these things for too long. Everything's just starting to look like a kaleidoscope of colors. Oh no, there it is, it's back. Okay, I do like this one. This one's cool. Next, for this one, I decided I wanted to try to do the whole palette. That was ugly. The whole palette and Poscas. But the Poscas really didn't want to stick to that plastic. I love paint so freaking much, I'm crying. I decided to go ahead and paint a layer of white paint on the palette to give the Poscas something to stick to, and weirdly hovering over the palette with the paintbrush. I don't know what that was about. I'm scared. And now I'm using a ruler. Oh, we don't use a lot of those around here. I don't like measuring things. I'm gonna grab my Poscas and let's draint. I guess by the time I did the base coat, I had changed my mind about what design I was gonna do, because whatever this was, that's nowhere to be seen. Not gonna lie, I kind of wanted to do watermelon on this one, but I didn't because some people say that I've done it too much. Watermelon, 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 watermelon. Oh my gosh, I did it again. Crazy people. Don't know what they're talking about. I decided to do citrus fruits. We have dessert, we have dinner, we have fruit. So the thing about citrus fruits is I don't really like any of them enough to commit to just one. So I kind of broke it up into sections like a pizza, and I included 4 different fruits: a lime, grapefruit, an orange, and a lemon. And then I added the seeds. Wait, no, those wouldn't be the seeds. That's like just the fruit, the inside fruit, the fruit flesh, which looks really wild from the side view. It gets a little trippy when you look at this from different angles. Finally, I'm adding little highlights to make it pop and adding some little dots around just for texture, I suppose. And that's that. This kind of looks like candy to me.
I should have done a candy palette.
Oh well, we're moving on from the food palettes. I've got some dark gray, blue, purple. You've got to know what kind of color scheme this is. I'm doing the galaxy thing, if you hadn't already guessed, which honestly, I cannot remember a time when I've done a galaxy design. There may have been one time. I'm trying to remember. It hurts. The galaxy trend was so huge. All the art and craft people were doing galaxy themed everything, but I think that trend has died down quite a bit. See, when everyone loved it, I was just sick of seeing it everywhere. But now that it's not so in my face all the time, I'm kind of starting to like it. You see how that works? I don't care about trends until they're dead. I'm not just making the typical galaxy look with the swirls and the stars. I'm adding a big planet, and it's a rainbow planet. Does this planet exist? It could be out there. If it ever gets discovered, I call dibs. It's mine, okay? I should really take that hair tie off because it's really distracting. Thank you. So this was interesting. I wasn't really sure how to paint a planet, so I was just kind of messing around with it, trying to figure it out and decide how I wanted it to look. I didn't know how much texture, what kind of texture, how much shadow, where to put the highlights. Do planets have highlights? This one does. Then I decided to add a little bit more variation to the background because it was looking a little bit flat, and the background was really fun. The planet wasn't that easy, but you know, I do struggle with everything. But the actual galaxy background, it was pretty easy to achieve, and it comes out looking cool with not that much effort. Of course, I added some stars with my Poscas to complete the whole look, and it's all done. You guys smell that? I smell new merchandise. I personally get really excited at the concept of taking something that I've painted by hand and converting it into like an actual product that I can share with you guys. My art has a child. I'm a grandma. That being said, let's look at the new products. Phone cases. If you've seen the video where I decorate phone cases, these are 2 of the designs that I made in that video. Which one's the original? Can you tell? Ooey, ooey. They look very similar to the originals. I'm really happy with how these came out. They look so cool. These are tough cases, so they're really nice quality, have protection around the whole edge. I did make these for Samsung as well. Didn't forget about you guys. I'll leave the link in the description as always. Let's get back to painting on paint palettes. So this next one is 2. I need 2 palettes for what I'm about to do. Whoa, what is happening? You'll see. So I'm putting blobs of different colors of paint into each well of this palette, and I'm just gonna, you know, play with it. I'm just using my paintbrush to try to make each one look interesting. And I'm gonna take a picture of it, make sure that I can see all the details clearly in the photo. This photo was actually my hint for this week's video on Instagram. Shout out to these people who guessed it correctly. So now I'm just throwing a coat of light gray paint on the other paint palette, and I'm using the paint from this palette and painting that paint on the other paint palette. Basically, I'm painting a paint palette with paint in it on a paint palette. Did that clear it up? I took the picture so that I could use it as a reference, because obviously I don't just want to waste all of the paint that I poured into this palette, but as I'm using it, I'm ruining my aesthetic blobs. So I'm actually using the picture to reference what they looked like. I'm not going for absolute realism here. I'm kind of exaggerating the shadows and the shapes, so it's definitely more cartoony. Also, I added a lot more of those mini blobs. That actually only happened once on the original, but
I thought it was so cute, I just had to add more.
now you may be thinking,
Mariah, like, you're so stupid. Why wouldn't you just let the paint dry on the first palette?
first of all, rude. Obviously, I could have just left the globs of paint in there and let them dry and called it done. But I don't think that that would be as cool or as interesting as trying to paint paint. That would have just been a dirty, clumpy paint palette, and I've seen that before. And it would look out of place with the other painted and properly decorated palettes. So this is how that palette ended up after using it. You're ugly now, you can leave. Another thing you might be wondering is why I painted the palette gray. I want the highlights to really pop, and when you have a bright white background, sometimes white highlights don't look as bright. If you want your highlights to be powerful, just don't use pure white anywhere else. I kind of hate how the black lines look on that yellow paint. I think it looks good on all the other colors, but the yellow is so light, it's just too extreme of a contrast. I should have done something to fix that, but what's done is done. Live and let live. Forgive and forget. What other cliches can we throw into that? Overall, I'm super happy with this one. Next, I'm grabbing one of these crazy ones. I'm gonna draw out a spiral. Just, paint the spiral with some blendy colors. It's funny because this palette has always been my favorite of my paint palettes to use because of all the different areas, but it's definitely my least favorite to paint on because of all the different areas. So I definitely had to stick to really simple designs with these palettes. So if you do try painting paint palettes yourself, I would suggest getting the round or the flat palettes. And you know what? Y'all probably don't even need to buy any because I probably have enough for everyone. I didn't realize, at least for the flat palettes, that they came in packs of multiples. So I only meant to order a couple, but then it was like triple that because they came in 3 packs. Oh my gosh. I can still use them, so it's fine if I have extras. They're really cheap too. They're maybe like $1 or $2 per palette. So, you have some people on YouTube painting on AirPods, Teslas, and then there's me painting on plastic paint palettes. If you do try this, please make sure to take a photo and tag me on Instagram at Mariah Elizabeth Official. I haven't been able to find anyone else who has done this. Moving on to another flat palette. Oh wow, that was really, really cool. So for this one, I'm painting a landscape. With the flat palettes, you can basically paint anything. I have so many more ideas that I could do with these. I settled on a landscape, even though me and landscapes, we're not the best of friends. Basically, I suck at landscapes. The only reason for that is I just don't practice enough. I can definitely count on one hand the number of times I've painted a landscape. I never even followed a Bob Ross tutorial like everyone else. I'm at a disadvantage. I love Bob Ross, don't get me wrong.
Bob Ross, he's a painter, he has a show. It's kind of old, but it's awesome.
But I never did the following a Bob Ross tutorial video because I guess I got tired of seeing everyone else do it. Bob, I'm sorry. This is not a happy accident. This is just plain tragedy. I can't expect to be good at something that I don't practice that much, so maybe it's not that bad. I think the reason I'm not a super fan of doing landscapes is because I really like the little neat, crisp details of things. But landscapes, it's such a large scale. My details end up very muddy. I tried. I don't hate this, but I can't help but feel like there's just so much wrong here. For me, I think it's good. Okay, let's do one more of these crazy ones. I painted the whole background a solid navy blue, which ended up looking like black, and I just drew confetti all over it. I used just about every color of Posca paint pen that I have to do this, and still, I feel like there's some colors missing. Like, do you ever feel like there aren't enough colors? There's gotta be more colors. I know there's like some sort of shrimp that can see colors that the human eye can't. What does he know that I don't? Like, what colors am I missing? I think about that way too often. So yeah, confetti, it's a party. To finish these paint palettes off, I'm just gonna add my signature to each and every one, and then I'm applying a clear varnish. Ew. Okay, these are all the paint palettes that I have to show for it. I did 8 in this video, so I have 9 total. I love them. I love them too much. Still have 31 of them left. Part 2, anyone? So now all that's left to do is to actually hang these on my wall. The first thing I did was lay them out and try to figure out how I wanted them arranged. I'm going to be using some command strips and just sticking these on the backs of each of the palettes. Look who wants attention. And here we go, placing them on the wall. I'm gonna trigger some people with the way that I've arranged these. A lot of people really prefer things to be perfectly symmetrical. I like that too in some situations, but with this, I really wanted them to be like a cluster. So I did try to make it like visually balanced, but this is just how I wanted it. And it's done. Here's my gallery of paint palettes. I love it so much. Could there be a more appropriate form of decor for an art room? This space right over my paint drying station, this is just the perfect thing to fill that space. I'm very satisfied. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye!